傾咗我哋先啦。呢個係 Champ。各位同事，我哋
Members, let's make a start.
好嘅，時間夠，同埋我啲同事都。
All right, it's time to make a start. We have attained the quorum. Let's get started with agenda proper. Let's get the domestic business out of the way first before we meet the deputations. The first item is a proposed overseas duty visit to Finland and Sweden. Mr. Leung Yu-jung, meeting is in session. Mr. Chung, is this the time frame that we're talking about? Yes, I'm referring to the paper. It is August. Any other proposals? Any specific reason why this time frame? No? I think the Council will move into prorogation in mid-July, and it is a bit strange. Some suggested mid-August. Your views, please. I think we have to tie in with the parliaments in these countries. Mr. Leung, will they have any summer recess? We have to be concerned about it as well. Well, they'll have summer recess in September and August and September. So we can visit the parliaments during that time. Well, August and September, the parliaments will go into recess. Whether we can meet the councillors would depend. The food and safety panel did go to Scandinavian countries during the summer break. But end of July, maybe the council meetings will be extended to the end of July, and that will have some implications. So please bear this in mind when deciding on the time frame of July. July 17th is the last council meeting. So we go straight over there as soon as we prorogate. Mr. Chung, well, there are so many uncertainties here. I would have thought that we stick to this proposed time frame unless otherwise decided. Right, we stick to the proposal by the Secretariat. Right, unless you have any further questions, let's have a look at the schedule, the subjects to be discussed for May to July. Right, do we open it up to other members other than the subcommittee members here? Any comments? Shall we open it up? If there is no response, I gather that this is agreeable. Let's move on to item 2, subjects to be discussed at meetings in May to July. Well, we're supposed to discuss poverty line and the underprivileged on the 29th, and now it is May the 8th, 8:30 to 10:30, poverty line and support for the disadvantaged groups. We do have a proposal for the administration regarding poverty line. Mr. Fernando Chung has been discussing with the Secretariat. The next one on the 20th of May, the administration proposed the Community Care Fund, and this will be given a high priority at the request of the administration, but this will clash with the ITB panel. For others, I don't think there are any changes. So this will take us to the 17th of June. All right, this is agreeable to members. Let's move on to item 3, poverty line. We're going to meet the deputations. Because of the sheer number of deputations, we have 2 sessions, and the first one includes about 30-odd deputations. Well, they come and they go. Perhaps we should allow about 15 minutes for the administration to make a response before we meet the next batch of deputations. We're not giving too much time to the deputations. We should leave about an hour or so for some discussions on the poverty line. Unless I remember incorrectly, Mr. Matthew Cheung will be meeting us on the 8th of May. So we should allow more time for the deputations for today. So shall we invite the administration and the deputations in, please?
有10分鐘，10分鐘15分鐘嚇。
如果10分鐘可能唔夠時間，因為我計過就應該好敏嘅，咁飲都去講，即係可能限。
我盡量我哋議員嗰度收啦。
係咯，開頭個文件就5分鐘夠啦，其實好簡單嘅。
每人
介紹個文件。
我知揾呢個嚟。
係啦，揾呢個。應該請人睇。
OK。哦，知道知道。第一次32。第一次34。34嗰條，第二次就32，第32間。第二次都唔使講幾多嘅。不過今日。係歡迎局長同埋各位團體嘅。
Welcome, Secretary and the deputations.
我都以為你係冇着。係，早晨，早晨。嚇？唔係我個表，點解？個表係啦，冇錯，睇翻個表先。好，我會即係爭。
All right, let's maximize the time available. Just a reminder that we have so many deputations for today. We divided into 2 sessions. We have 30 deputations and a couple of individuals for the first session. This is how we proceed. The Secretary for Health, Labour and Welfare will be taking us through the paper first before I hand the floor to the deputations. Please clip on the microphones. Channel 0 is for the floor. Number 1 for Cantonese, number 2 for English. I will be calling upon the deputations to take it in turn to make their representations. Each will be restricted to 3 minutes. Just a reminder that you will not be protected by the Electoral Powers and Privileges Ordinance, Cap 382, and your written submissions will not be protected by the ordinance either. So just a reminder for you on that. Let's get started. I'd like to call upon the Secretary to spend 5 minutes to take us through the paper and bring us up to date on the progress regarding the setting of the poverty line. And after the deputations have all spoken, I'll ask the Secretary to make a response, and that will be the end of the first session, and then will come the second session. The deputation for the first session will be leaving to make room for the next batch of deputations, and I hope that the Secretary will make a response to the views of the deputations. All right, then let's get started. Administration first, I beg your pardon. Mr. Matthew Cheung, please. Chairman, members, deputations, good morning. I'm grateful to Chairman for arranging for this public hearing. Poverty alleviation represents the top priority of this administration. The poverty line is also a top priority. In October last year, we had the first meeting. Now we have the Social Security and Retirement Protection Task Force under the COP, which is following up on this. I'm Vice Chairman of this task force. It is headed up by the CS. We are going full steam. On the 28th of January and 18th of March, we started our discussion. The poverty line has 3 functions. The first one is to gauge the poverty situation. We're trying to quantify the poverty situation in Hong Kong with focused analysis of various groups of people living below the poverty line. Second, we like to facilitate policy formulation. We like to optimize the use of limited resources and put in place a more appropriate and effective poverty alleviation policy. Third, to review policy effectiveness, enabling quantitative assessment of the effectiveness of policy interventions. We have adopted the concept of relative poverty and set the main poverty line at half of the median household income. As the Chief Executive said in an interview, the setting of a poverty line is quite unprecedented in this administration. It shows our concern about the poverty situation. Now, poverty line doesn't mean that this is a line by which we offer assistance. It doesn't mean that anybody who falls below the poverty line will be automatically offered subsidies. Now, we do have all the information that's set out in paragraph 6. We don't really have any assessment of the assets. We have no idea about the size of the assets. Now, this is also tied, not tied to welfare. Now, for those with higher household income, because they are qualified under the policy intervention policies, they will also be given assistance. If they meet the requirements, they will be offered assistance. In fact, the poverty line is a tool for analysis. It enables us to identify and target various groups of people and formulate policy targeted at specific characteristics and needs of the identified groups. Now we take advantage of the quantitative analysis. This will enable the government to offer assistance in a more targeted and focused manner. Given the limited resources, we can put them to proper use. For the poverty line to fulfill its function, we have discussed what measures should be adopted to look at the pre-policy intervention household income. CSSA, old age allowance, disability allowance, and student finance, these are less controversial. Members agree that they should be incorporated as the post-policy intervention household income. For non-cash-based benefits, like those recurrent benefits, that are means tested, such as the public housing, it should be included in the non-cash-based benefits of policy interventions, while those universal non-cash-based benefits, such as 12-year free education, outpatient services, and hospital services, they should not be included. Appreciate that different organizations do have different views regarding the nitty-gritty. I must point out that there are limitations to any measures. This concept of relative poverty doesn't take into account the assets. And some academics feel that those with low income but a lot of assets will also be included. Now, there is also the limitation that there will certainly be people who will be statistically living below the poverty line, but this would enable us to monitor the poverty situation and quantify the poverty situation in Hong Kong. With your indulgence, Chairman, let me just finish. I'll be quick. On the 2nd of May, the COP will be discussing the formulation of the poverty line. The Social Security and Retirement Protection Task Force will look at housing welfare characteristics and the poverty situation, and then come up with detailed analysis. We are basically confident that within this year we should be able to put in place a poverty line, and we're delighted to listen to what you have to say, and on the 8th of May I look forward to further exchanges with members. All right, I'll throw the floor open to deputations. The first one is Alliance for Universal Pension. Chairman, now we knew what the Secretary was going to say before we started. Let me show you something. Poverty line is a waste of time. It is a pretension. We should have a universal retirement protection. Please. Well, please be seated.
好，翻去正題啊！咁頭先局長都一開始講咗啦，即係貧窮線就唔等於扶貧線，咁聽落就好似有啲語言藝術。咁其實我哋就會問，咁條貧窮線即係做乜？條貧窮線整嚟呢，原來唔係解決緊貧富懸殊或者一個貧窮嘅問題嘅時候，由頭到尾都只係一個整色整水嘅工程。我哋關心嘅地方係扶貧委員會由上年11月成立到而家，都只係喺呢一個嘅貧窮線嘅問題上面呢，不斷喺度重複，不斷喺度做樣，不斷喺度浪費時間。跟住呢，政府就會話喺呢個退休保障問題上面呢，又係扶貧委員會處理。我哋就會問條貧窮線整得出嚟，究竟扶貧委員會仲有幾多時間係可以討論或者即係跟進全民退休保障？與其係咁嘅，我哋作為民間團體，只會重申翻一個好簡單嘅訴求，即係與其嘥咁多時間再喺呢個貧窮嘅委員會裏面傾呢，不如我哋就去問嚟緊2014年11月嘅時候，扶貧委員會任期完結啦，係咪政府可以重新將全民退休保障拎翻出嚟，成立一個獨立專責嘅委員會，就好似標準工時委員會咁樣，訂立一個具體嘅時間表同路線圖，唔好再喺度蹉跎歲月。如果局長喺呢方面揸唔到主意嘅，局長係處理唔到呢個問題嘅，唔該可以叫李老闆出嚟。我唔係講緊出面個李老闆，我講緊閣下嗰位梁振英行政長官出嚟，就住呢個全民退休保障具體落實一個時間表同路線圖，唔好再同我哋民間團體喺度蹉跎歲月，而本身喺講緊嗰啲咩量度嗰啲，家陣我哋唔係再喺度即係講緊咩 free can buy 嗰啲，我知道局長做咗教育局局長做過嘅，但係而家唔係講緊量度，係解決緊個貧窮問題，解決長者貧窮問題嘅最有效方法，由頭到尾就係全民退休保障。唔該，局長就要全民退休保障，我要時間表，我要時間表，我要路線圖，唔該。
第二位係葵芳村長者權益關注組啊，鐘孝平先生。
多謝主席。我今日咧就係講一講呢個即係長者增貼生活增貼。初時咧我哋就係要求咧就免審免查嘅，咁但係咧局長咧就話好簡單申報就算㗎啦，就咁但係嚟講咧攞開生果金以前65歲嗰啲咧就係已經審查過就錄表就唔使審唔使查㗎啦，咁但係我65歲嗰陣攞生果金咧就已經俾社會福利署審查過咧，應該咧就記錄表嘅。但係唔知點樣，唔知呢個社會福利署個嗰啲頭啊個人腦壞咗，還是電腦壞咗，就搞到咧而家就俾黃表。咁我想問下張局長，你有冇睇過呢個黃表啊？要呢個見證人嘅，你肯唔肯做我見證人？若果唔填見證人，嗰欄又點樣計算係唔合資格？同時，我強烈要求呢個全民退休保障，但係梁振英競選嗰陣呢，已經提出過有呢個全民養老嘅基金，點解唔肯做？到而家嚟講呢，今時今日你有冇曾視過社會福利署嘅嘢呢？我前嗰輪咧去社會福利署咧就遞呢個叫呢個前線嗰啲職員咧同我填表啊，但係咧佢話我哋唔填㗎，你揾人填寄翻嚟啦咁。但係有一啲人咧就係填好咗帶到去社會福利署叫佢收，佢話我哋唔收㗎，我哋一定要你寄翻嚟。但係仲有啲人咧問佢，喂，有冇信封啊？同我寫地址喎，咁佢話你閣下嘅事啦，咁有啲咧當堂都撕爛咗，掉低個地嚟。但係嚟講社會福利署咧已經擠到咧，就從來未有咁好生意嘅，擠人擠到滿晒。咁根本上呢個長者生活津貼咧已經搞到一鑊泡㗎啦。有啲咧完全就收唔到表，有啲綠表咧就收咗黃表啊。咁樣嚟講咧就非常之混亂。咁我希望咧就張建宗局長咧要解決呢個問題。同時咧就希望你就會唔會同我做見證人咧？若果唔填呢行又點樣咧？咁請阿局長解釋下，多謝。
OK，盧少蘭女士，老人權益中心。
咁我咧就今日出嚟講。當初你個9月，你個21號咧，你個梁振英咧，早我哋話香港咧，而家現在係有個人接手啦，咁我又幾歡喜啦。我話呢個爛攤子你一定要擔起嘅喎，你要轟轟烈烈喎，要搞好全民退休保障喎。佢話唔使轟轟烈烈，認認真真就得啦。不知個認真之處在哪裏？轉一個蛙身咧，佢搞一個2200蚊出嚟，唔3唔4，唔輕唔淡喎。你個飽唔死啊，餓唔死喎。你個梁振英咧，真係正式冇良心嘅，整到又審又查，審到啲老人家咧懵懵懂懂。第二個咧，有個林月娥咧就話出嚟也搞啦。佢而家咧就推卸責任，左推右推。佢梗係啦，佢有毛有翼啦，非大個國家享老命啦。我哋老人家咧痛又擦腳底，走得去邊度啊？都係落咗香港生活啦。所以我哋一定要你咧就要搞全民退休保障。你有班高官咧，千祈唔好整色整水，唔好話土餅不知土鵝印。我所講就係咁多。
OK， 唔該。第4位係工友權益聯社張文慧女士。
好，多謝主席。咁咧今日又見到張局長啦。我估張局長咧，即係近日咧就即係玩失蹤啦。就算碼頭工人咧咁大件事咧，都冇就住呢件事裏邊咧去進行即係幫手啦，即係討論啦，甚至乎咧去 即係主動去解決個問題。咁大家都睇到啊，今時今日工人面對嗰種處境咧，唔單止係即係低收入。時間長，而且直接咧喺碼頭工人嘅事件裏面，我哋睇到嗰個外判制度咧嗰種嘅不要得。咁其實呢個外判制咧就由回歸之後已經出現啦。所以我想講啦，張局長搞咁多嘢，整條所謂嘅軟尺出嚟，對於我哋一啲嘅基層工友有咩作用呢？係咪我哋整咗呢條線之後就等於我哋會富有咗呢？係咪我哋攞咗呢個嘅即係公屋上咗樓就等於公屋冇窮人呢？我諗絕大部分嘅基層工友咧，其實而家面對嗰種處境，唔單止係低收入，唔單止面對咧，就日日咧都做嗰個工時好長。其實面對緊嘅就係咧，我哋更加係冇一個嘅全民退休保障。作為勞福局嘅局長，我諗喺呢度咧就必須要重申一次咧。全民退休保障制度並唔係一個所謂一個淨係老人家嘅福利制度、福利政策。對於勞工嚟講，點解我哋捱咗一世，到退休嘅時候我哋乜都冇呢？真係拍手無塵。我諗喺呢一度必須要重新強調，你作為一個勞福局局長，必須要全面去睇翻作為一個嘅勞工嘅時候，究竟我哋退休之後有啲乜？而家所謂嘅強積金，大家都睇到嗰種嘅即係不濟嘅狀況，我諗我呢度唔多講，但我必須要講下個數字呢，就我估下局長應該清楚知道，其實去到2012年呢，我哋嘅本地嗰個人均嗰個生產總值呢，其實係28萬幾，咁佢相差喺1997年嘅時候係3成幾，高咗3成幾，我想講。但我哋嘅基層勞工，我哋而家面對嘅勞工嗰種處境呢，原來我哋嗰個嘅即係實質嘅工資嘅增長只係得4%。我想問，而家嗰種嘅在職貧窮咁嚴重，其實有好多嘅機構、好多嘅民間組織已經係指出。
Poor, and many of the many NGOs have pointed out that we have close to 600,000 people who can be defined as working poor. So if you use the medium household income as the basis, the population is more than 1 million. So how will the government, intend to help the 1.3 million poor people to rise above the poverty line so that they're able to live have a living standard above that of the poverty line? We don't want to see the government simply drawing a line and say that with 1.3 million people below the poverty line and with public housing units offered to them, it's down to 0.7 million. As workers, we want the government not only to immediately, cancel the outsourcing system, and that the minimum wage should be increased to $35 per hour. For workers, we want the government to fully implement a system of universal retirement protection. Next, we have Ms. G. What is the purpose of setting the poverty line? Does it mean that we should set up a long-term plan to help the poor, to lead, or is it only a method to deduct the various social measures in order to reduce the number of poor populations so that people who are generally in poverty will fall out of the poverty line? So you just want to, come up with some, better looking figures. I think the COP should not work behind closed doors. It should operate transparently. It should disclose its agenda and also discussion papers, and listen to the views of the public and to generally try to understand the plight of the public. And it should also organize public hearings and also formulate policies to help the poor. The proposal to deduct the welfare measures, I think those who set up the poverty line should also set up an affluence line so that the public can really understand what is the real situation in our community. We should also introduce a progressive income tax and also impose tax on stock dividends, and there is a duty for those who are well off to really, pay back to the community, and those who are, and the real affluent should be proud because to pay such taxes. Should we narrow the poverty gap, or should we push the income, unequal distribution of income to the extreme? And does the government want a large number of people falling into the poverty trap and just come up with some short-term poverty alleviation measures? So whatever measures you impose, the number of poor people will go up. The following policies will result in poverty. The big consortium and the business who earns billions of dollars, and the SMEs are paying the same, profit tax of 15%. And for the underprivileged, you only give them token assistance, and you impose means tests to ensure that the majority of the senior citizens will not benefit from such measures. And thirdly, you're forcing the people to contribute to the MPF while you call it the retirement protection scheme. But it is only, putting money into the financial industry, which is operated like a casino. And you're not able to protect the livelihood of people after the retirement. Fourthly, you haven't yet implemented universal retirement protection. The elderly people can no longer work, and because they fall into the poverty trap. The previous CE disregarded public's aspiration, and his housing policy, I think he's been condemned by people for his failures. Does the current CE want to pass on the problem of poverty to the next generation to shoulder? It is duty of the government to implement universal retirement protection. It is a right on the part of the people. The government has the duty to narrow the poverty gap. Mr. Chang from the Kwai Chung Estate Residents' Rights Concern Group. I'm very happy to see Mr. Matthew Cheung here today. Mr. Cheung said that the OH living allowance, if you want to apply for that, it's very simple. When I received this form, it's not simple at all. Because in this form, we need to find a witness. So all I can do is ask my son-in-law to be the witness, and he said, well, I'm willing to be your witness, but then if something goes wrong, I'll be asked to testify in court. So later on, I asked my daughter to be with us, and my daughter said, okay, I'll put in my name, but if you should fail to report something, if you should breach law, the two of us will go to prison together. So I had no choice but ask my daughter to sign. But I'm 81 years old. There are many things which happened in the past which I cannot remember. There definitely will be some omissions in my declaration. C.Y. Leung, such a smart man he is, CE. He even failed to report his, unauthorized building structures, not to mention senior people like myself. So my daughter has now signed her name as a witness. I don't know whether I've made any omissions, and if anything goes wrong, the two of us will go to prison. If you really want to help the poor, don't, bully the poor. You're not helping the poor. You're actually, actually bullying the poor. In a park, I met three senior ladies, and say while they're filling the form, they couldn't find witnesses. So it's not a simple process. Perhaps I'll stop here. Ms. Sim Pik Fun from the Concerned Group for Retirement Protection for the middle class. She's not here. So Mr. Wong from the Boys and Girls Clubs Association, again not here yet. Mr. Zhang Li Keng from the Li Wah House of Li On Estate, Embassy. 3 pillars, 5 pillars, the Gini ratio. The government is counting, public welfare as poverty line, tackling poor relative poverty, means test, helping the poor, retire in place. Where does money come from? The resources should go to those with the greatest need. The spirit of under the line raw wishes to be self-reliant, financial stability. There is no common consensus. Financially not viable. We'll conduct further studies. The MPF, CSSA. People have to declare they're not going to support the parents. It's special OH living allowance. Personal saving, so-called fruit money, simple declaration. 480,000 people will benefit. Well, for 20 years, these are the social measures that you've implemented. you created all these fancy terms, but we don't see any sign yet of the government going to implement universal retirement protection. Why don't you frankly admit that you're simply, playing with the citizens? Now that you've set the poverty line, will you all next set a line for affluence? Please do not come up with anything like that. When we have the new CE, he would say that the poverty line set up in 2013-14 is no longer updated, and he will have to start again. So does that mean that you're really fooling the people? Mr. Ng, I thought I would see Mrs. Carrie Lam and not Mr. Matthew Joe. He should be outside the Cheung Kong Center instead. I'm really sad to see him here because every time we meet with him, there's no outcome. I really like to challenge Carrie Lam. He said that for the COP to discuss the poverty line, we're talking about high-level policy, deliberations, and the public is not suitable for the public to participate. When LegCo asked for some papers, she said that they were confidential, and therefore this subcommittee cannot discuss that. So if you operate behind such closed doors, how can you come up with a social census? I'm really ashamed for you. And secondly, this gentleman quotes all these fancy technical jargons. They're really frightening. I've heard about, transfer, welfare transfer, poverty line is not equal to poverty line. The public simply don't understand what you're saying. What exactly do you want to do? However you go about to set this so-called poverty line, if the senior citizens don't have any income, whether you use the medium, monthly income or the domestic household income, senior citizens definitely will fall under the category of the poor. If we're not willing to provide for universal retirement protection so that they can, earn an income similar to that of how can you alleviate poverty? I think what you do in the end will actually force these people, senior people, to fall under the poverty trap. Now that there have been so many complaints, we've recently heard that you're going to set up a task group, and there's demand for a timetable and a roadmap. Recently, we heard that Mr. Chow Ing-san will help the Poverty Commission to conduct a study. Superficially, this appears that it would appear that the government is making a response, but on further analysis, it means that the government is simply trying to evade his responsibility. Last time, we asked Professor Zhang to come up with this figure, $2,200, so you don't have to implement universal retirement protection scheme. And now you've asked Professor Zhao to lead this research study, and then you can delay further. Dr. Zhao obviously knows what is the meaning of poverty. He's been studying this subject for so long, but he's always been very conservative. He's always on the side of the government. I read from the newspapers that even he was in favor of a universal retirement protection scheme offering each senior citizen $4,000 per month. Mr. Secretary, I'm sure there is already a social consensus. It's time for us to get started. If even Dr. Zhao, Professor Zhao, has this view. So what we asked for is very simple. During the term of the current administration, it must come up with a timetable and roadmap to implement universal retirement protection in order to alleviate the problem of structural poverty among the elderly. Next, we have the Grassroots Development Center. I think our association has the following views. We agree that we need to set a poverty line as the basis of future policy alleviation measures.
On the definition of underprivileged families, are defined as families which are below the median household income, and the resources distribution of women in families are ignored. And our recommendation is that in the future, protection measures in the future must be gender sensitive. there should be subsidies on childcare in order to distribute the resources more evenly. And I have something to say about victims of family abuse who need to rebuild their families. In the past, Ms. Carrie Lam, she gave us a subsidy for victims who suffered from family tragedies to rebuild their families, and now you do not have this subsidy. So what can you offer them? Even second-hand furniture? Do you need to give them a subsidy to buy their household necessities? And this is very lacking. And for the mothers who have to relocate their children from one district to another, if you ask them to offer the money from their own pockets, and they also want to provide tuition for their children, but now you do not even give them the subsidy for transferring their children to another school, and now you're not even offering this support. And you are actually, in effect, creating poverty rather than helping us. So what is the purpose of setting this poverty line? Is this to create poverty or to classify impoverished people? This is our opinion. Mr. Lau from the Shamshui-Po Community Association. Thank you. Today, Ms. Carrie Lam is not in attendance. Earlier, Ms. Carrie Lam said openly that the poverty line is not so rigidly defined. But when I see the documents today, it says very clearly that public housing is one of the criteria in the definition. I think you yourself or Ms. Lam has heard opposing voices on this issue. The question is, how do you calculate how much subsidy the government gives to these impoverished people? Can you tell us what basis or figures do you base your decision off? When I check the government documents, the housing department has revenue every month, and they have lots of revenue, more than 60 billion. This is very strange. And this is a very strange situation when the government gives subsidy to the inhabitants, but the housing, the HA, has a lot of revenue. So if you are including public housing as one of the benefits, this is a very strange situation. And for public housing inhabitants, in the past, in the 70s and 60s, in districts like Sha Tin, Tin Shui Wai, Tseung Kwan O, the public housing estate and inhabitants had a very difficult time. They were the pioneers. And later, the land prices went up. The developers went in and built a lot of new properties. And now you are saying that because of the land prices going up, and we have already given the land premium subsidies. So are you taking advantage of the people who helped raise the land prices? In Tin Shui Wai, there was a 16% increase in the land value, and now if you are including public housing as part of the benefits calculation, so do you think the salaries of the residents of Tin Shui Wai has gone up by 16%? So the answer is probably no. We are not foolish. I want to emphasize one thing. or instead of doing all these things, you should focus your attention on the Universal Retirement Protection Scheme. Thank you, Chairman. The Oxfam agrees that when we calculate the impoverished population, we should compare the impoverished population before and after the measures are in place. When we calculate social services like education and medical services, if we look on the international scene, these calculations are not common because they are very controversial. By comparison, the impoverished population in Hong Kong, compared with other countries, it's still acceptable. Later, the government considered different voices from different groups. They started calculating the medical and education costs. But you insist on including the effects of the public housing prices. And the effect is the calculated impoverished population has been decreased to under 700,000. We acknowledge that public housing is helpful to low-income families. If the government has to take this into account, our recommendation is the prices of public housing estates is quite fluctuating depending on the market, and now the prices are very high. And the effect is a lot of the population who would have been included as classified as impoverished will now not be included in the brackets. The most important thing is to set a limit on the affordability of low-income families for housing. We can look at a solution on the ratio of rents in terms of their income. We can take reference from New Zealand and Australia, where they allow low-income families can buy or rent proper housing. When the government calculates the population, they should take in they should consider their income. If you include all the nominal income, we have to be very careful. The Lion Rock Institute, please. Chairman, we believe in helping the poor. If you are setting your basing your definition on the household median income, they're not sincere to help. If you visit a village which is starving almost to death, can you look at these people, the relative poor, and understand their plight? But you are saying that because your income is above the mean, so we are not helping you. A lot of bodies who say they are helping the poor, which do not even take their assets into account. If the poor people cannot get better, they will forever be poor, and these people can continue to get funds from the government. We believe that we should be impartial and scientific in our approach. We can, for example, if you want to see if people are eating enough, we can take the amount of calories into account, and only by using this impartial and scientific approach, we can identify which are the people who need help. And so we can see how we can help them using our limited resources. And one way we can help the relative poor We can, for example, we can ask Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, a LegCo member who earns more than $80,000 to leave his house, and we can even help him relocate. So we hope LegCo and the government do not be deceived by these people who are taking advantage of the relative poor. Academic for universal pension. Today I want to voice my opinion, and I have something to say about what the Lion Rock Institute said. Some people talk about impartiality and science all the time. They should go out on the streets and see the people who are picking up paper scalp. The problem is the fundamental problem is the system has a lot of loopholes in Hong Kong. I think people who said those words are very cruel, and they're not sincerely reviewing the retirement scheme of Hong Kong. And people who say these words, they are always making excuses for the government and commerce. And talking about poverty, currently the poverty line has a lot of problems. We're talking about benefits. We're including housing. We're including old age allowance. At the end, these problems will become an issue of having public housing estate. There won't be any more poor people. If the government does not consider these indicators, they will not be able to alleviate poverty. Retirement protection and poverty alleviation are two separate things. I hope the government do not confuse them, and please do not think that please do not use means testing, because there are a lot of prejudice, labeling. A lot of senior citizens have the opinion that if they take these benefits, they would be labeled as poor, so they would rather pick up paper on the streets rather than to get these subsidies. Back to the COP. I think this is a close quarter. Regarding the retirement protection scheme, they are deciding everything. For LegCo's groups in the public, they do not know anything. The meetings, the documents are not open and not transparent. How can the society and LegCo monitor the operation? Ms. Chow, I am a student from the Chinese University. Now Hong Kong relies on the MPF for retirement protection, and I do not have confidence in that. According to the Consumer Council, in the last 5 years, 45% of the funds are losing money, and that's why I do not have confidence in MPF. When we look at 2008, there was a financial tsunami, and the funds, the prices of the funds were going down. And at that time, we know this is an economic cycle, and the prices of the funds are going ups and downs. And by this account, we do not know when the fund prices will take another hike, and this depends on the government's economic situation. So why do our retirement protection scheme has to be like funds and take the same risks? And on the other hand, the universal retirement protection does not depend on interest. The interest rate is lower, but the risk is also lower than MPF. Our reserves will be richer, and even if we face economic uncertainties, the government has enough reserves for the coming 24 months. Some people say that the universal protection scheme is unfair because we have to help the rich people and the parents of other people. So that's why the young people would not agree to this scheme. We understand that the retirement fund is a three-party fund. We only have to contribute 2.5% of our salary in return for thousands of companies and the government to join in the scheme. We won't have to hand them back to companies to manage the funds, and we do not have to worry that the funds will be shared by the companies. And we can safeguard the interests of the elderly. For MPF, it only applies to the working force, and for the retired and elderly, they're not protected. So we hope that it will be an elderly fund for to safeguard the retirement benefits. Mr. Lai from the Elderly Welfare Group. Thank you, Chairman. I think now a lot of people's understanding of poverty issues, they only think about benefits. They talk about the government benefits. For example, in introducing a $2,200 subsidy for the elderly, but they have not considered the structural problem, the cause of poverty. In this way, it's very equal to relate the problem of poverty with the problem of living, and a lot of people will talk about will think about different ways how these people are living inadequate lives, and a lot of people have reflected their own actual situations. For example, some people may have long-term illnesses, and they have children working, but still they still cannot cover their medical bills, thousands of dollars every month. So they are revealing their own situation, and this is the only way they can get sympathy from the government to give them more measures and subsidies to help them, to help their medical costs. However, this approach do not give a sense of respect to the residents. If the government says the poverty line will help the impoverished, the most effective manner for it to be effective, the setting of poverty lines should not be just an indicator. They should have more concrete measures to execute the policy. I think the setting the poverty line is just the first step to battle poverty. I think the government is trying to divert attention by setting this poverty line, to divert all the attention to the definition of poverty line and the corresponding welfare. They are not placing emphasis on tackling poverty itself. They are not doing enough to battle the problem itself.
Madam Chow. Chairman, I've been fighting for retirement protection for 8 years. My dad is right behind me. He's dead now. This is the first 7th day of his death. I urge the Secretary to bow to my dad and explain to him how soon the universal retirement protection will come about. Right, let's come back to the subject. The residents don't quite understand why the COP has to be so secretive. They can't even tell us the agenda items. The residents don't have a clue what is going on there. Our network includes a lot of people from the grassroots. Many of them, 80% of them, are living below the household median household income. There is a lot of controversy regarding the level that the poverty line should be pitched at. Now, the residents feel that the money doesn't last them very long, and the quality of life has been going down. The standard of living has been going up. We used to make $10,000. We paid $2,000 for rent. We paid not so much for shopping, and now we have seen a pay rise of a small amount, but the rental has been doubled. The shopping, the market prices have also doubled. The transportation costs have also doubled. Now, the government's alleviation policy, the $6,000 cash handout and transport subsidy and so on, all these would be taken up by the landlords. We can't even have a decent life. The government is going through so much to set a poverty line. I think it's far better for the government to set the subsistence line. Anyone who falls below this line should be given some subsidies, and the subsidies level is going to go up constantly. We, instead of discussing what is poverty and what is poverty line, we should do something about it. This is the result of injustice in the community. We don't really want to have any handouts. We should really penalize those culprits who are creating poverty in the first place. So when the government sets the poverty line, the government should set a line or set up a committee to consider setting a line to make sure that wealth can be evenly distributed to ensure social justice. Right, Mr. Ma, Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong. Chairman, poverty has been besetting Hong Kong for years, and this has caused a lot of tension in the community. Unemployment is hovering around 3%. GDP registers about 4% increase per annum. But there is still a lot of demand for poverty alleviation and elimination. It's an indictment of the inadequacy of the government. The DAB adopts an open mind regarding poverty. We feel that the poverty alleviation policy didn't have any particular standard, and we couldn't show any good results. The setting of poverty line is beneficial because it would provide an objective standard for the administration to assess the policies in an objective manner. With the introduction of poverty line, the government would have a more transparent information on the basis of which policies can be formulated, and there would also be data to respond to the concerns on the part of the community regarding poverty. There are a lot of people who inquired with the DAB as to whether the poverty line should be equivalent to a poverty policy, or whether they should be synonymous with poverty alleviation. I think that the administration should explain in uncertain terms to the members of the public to stop any misconception. While setting poverty line, the government should also show more concerns about the working poor. Other than the CSSA, the government should offer some supplement to the working poor. We can take a leaf out of the book of the work incentive transport scheme as long as someone fulfills and meets tests, there should be some subsidy offered to them to make up for their shortfall in income. The government should get on with dealing with the working poor. Poverty alleviation should not be restricted to the setting of poverty line. While we are doing so, we should also put in place proper measures to eliminate the tension and confrontation between those who are rich and those who are poor. Mr. Leung is not here. Ms. Ho, Industrial Relations Institute. Ms. Ho. Chairman, instead of setting the poverty line, we have to identify the causes of poverty. Otherwise, the more you try to help, the more the poorer people will become. We have registered a growth rate of 4.5%. The pie is big, but how much can we share in the market? The workers are getting exploited. The workers are taking advantage of this continuous contract of employment to exploit the workers. There was offsetting arrangement for LSP and SP. $17 billion have been offset. The workers are suffering under this, and 30% of their pay would have to pay for the subdivided flats. There is no rental control. The developers are hoarding land bank. The property prices are booming, and people are contributing to the developers in terms of rent, and they are fattening the pocket of these developers. The fair adjustment mechanism and the electricity tariff and $18 billion have been set aside for electricity alleviation. $3.8 billion has been spent on work incentive transport scheme. We are fattening the pocket of the Hong Kong Electric, the transportation companies, at the expense of the members of the public. From employment to food and other things we have been exploited. The government has stopped issuing the license, hawker licenses. The developers are dictating our lives, and they're dictating our thoughts. Instead of working hard, people are beginning to speculate on the equity market to get rich. But the asset prices are escalating, and we have to contribute our hard-earned money to the developers at our own expense. Now, the terminal dockers are cases in point. It has been 15 years since the reunification. The exploitative system is still in place. As long as we have the functional constituency, as long as we don't have the universal suffrage, as long as we have all the policies are skewed in favor of the developers, we can't do anything about it. That all these rich people are getting richer, the poor people are getting poorer. Other than setting the poverty line, you can do something. You should lead the COP to think about the causes of poverty and do something about the situation. We should get rid of the system to enrich the rich and making the poor poorer. We are all part of the community. With rights comes our duty. I'd like to recommend this book for you, Secretary. Make it quick, please. Poverty in the rich community. I urge you to invite us to the COP for some exchanges.
多謝主席。
Women Workers Cooperative, Chairman. We're composed of the women workers in the manufacturing industry. We do have the following views to make. That the COP has been set up to set the poverty line in order to identify the poor population in Hong Kong. We believe that the poverty line should be linked with the welfare policy, because the poverty line on its own doesn't quite make sense. A lot of the welfare policies do not offer enough protection to the grassroots people. The working people may be working very hard, but they're not making enough to fend for themselves, because the large corporations, the conglomerates, are not prepared to share their fruits with the workers. People don't have collective bargaining, and even with work available, they are still mired in poverty. We have high inflation, high transportation costs. The wage hike cannot catch up with inflation. So we believe that the government has to improve the welfare policy and make sure that there will be no exploitation by the large conglomerates. We have 6 recommendations. First, the government should speed up rental housing construction. There should be more clinics, hospitals, and so on, to minimize the medical bills. Second, public utilities, electricity, gas, transport, they're all part of daily necessities. The government should not allow them to make rich profits and still increase the tariffs. The government should tighten the scheme of control. There should also be no more monopoly at the retail level. Third, wages should go up. There should be annual adjustment to the minimum wage. There should also be standard working hours to protect the health and family lives of the workers. Fourth, the government should encourage more recycling industry while minimizing waste. We can create more job opportunities for the grassroots people. Fifth, we should go down legislative path to protect workers' right, like collective bargaining power, to prevent exploitation. Sixth, there should be universal retirement pension scheme with participation by the employers and employees. People then can be retiring in dignity. The government should not really engage in empty talk. It should really improve the quality of life and make Hong Kong a decent place to live in. All right, Justice and Peace Commission of Catholic Diocese. Chairman, I'm Yip Po Lam from the Justice and Peace Commission of the Catholic Diocese. The poverty line is going to be set at half of the median household income. There are so many problems with that. Why 50%? If you take 50% of the median household income and compare it with the CSSA, then the median household income is actually lower than the CSSA level. Now we have all these textbook subsidy, transport subsidy. The eligibility criteria is actually higher than half of the median household income. Now, under what circumstances, what criteria would you adopt to set it at that particular level? Does it mean that all the eligibility criteria for the welfare schemes will be lowered as a result? Second, the calculation should not include the rental housing and the old age allowance. Given the raging inflation, if you include the rental housing, the property prices are so high, and rental housing simply cannot enable the residents to have more disposable income. If you include the old age allowance, then there would be a kind of financial trick in order to lower the size of the poor population. Third, the COP should engage the public for a public consultation. There is no accountability in this regard. All the discussion papers and minutes of the meetings are kept under wraps. There is no way we can get access to the information or contribute our views. We hope that the COP would engage a public consultation in a transparent manner regarding the poverty line. Fifth, the poverty line should not be a tool for reference. There should be all the corresponding policies to be formulated. The poverty line is designed to gauge the size of the poor population. Instead of just manipulating the figures, there ought to be policies to be formulated to assist the low-income families. So we believe that the poverty line should be pitched at 60% of the median household income. Dr. Reed?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would like to strongly urge the government to adopt an expenditure-based poverty measure. So currently the suggestion based on median income is not poverty-based. So in other words, you work out a poverty budget, an idea of the goods and services that everyone should have objectively, and then work out the price of what those goods and services are, and that should be the benchmark, okay? And the reason for that is because his poverty line is supposed to be a tool to evaluate policies, okay? And if you're benchmarking to median income, then what you're doing is essentially you are benchmarking to the middle class, right? And if you benchmark to the middle class, then that line is going to bounce around for all sorts of reasons that are not related to the actual situation of the working poor in Hong Kong. For instance, if you have a situation where, say, the rich get richer at the expense of the middle class, and according to this median income measure, then poverty should improve in Hong Kong, and that's obviously wrong. Okay, so what I would strongly urge the government to do is to adopt an expenditure-based measure which is tied to the actual situation of lower-income households in Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ng Kun Lin, not here. Mr. Yam, Hong Kong Association for Democracy and People's Livelihood. Chairman, the ADPL feels that the COP should not be keeping all the documents under wraps. Nothing is posted on the web, and they're working really very much behind closed doors. I am disappointed to see just the Secretary for Labour and Welfare. I think the CS should be here physically today. The COP hasn't engaged the members of the public for any public hearing. The 20-odd COP members are working as if they are representing all of Hong Kong. Some of them may be representative enough, but I don't think they can represent all the views of the public. At one of the public hearings, there are so many voices expressed. I think all these should be channeled to the COP. In relation to the poverty line, the ADPL feels that there should be three concepts. First, the basic subsistence protection, like the CSSA, it should be reviewed. It was last reviewed in 1996, and eventually it was adjusted downwards. Second, the poverty line. We feel that this is something that you have to strive for. Mrs. Carrie Lam did say on one occasion that the government has one objective for the poverty line. If it is pitched at half of the median household income, it is really too much on the low side. And if we take into account all the social transfer household income and rental housing and so on, then the poor population would not be a reflection of the true situation, and will not be able to be supportive. Second, we should have a second safety net. Like some of the deputations said, there should be a prevention poverty line. If in Hong Kong the economy is showing some downward trend and people are falling into the second safety net, the government should be far-sighted enough to formulate policy to arrest any further fall into the second safety net. This is something that a far-sighted administration should be doing. Mr. Secretary, I hope that you will channel our views to the Chief Secretary. Maybe you can invite her to come here. We don't mind having another round of consultation. Again, our voices are very clear. We have been talking for so many years about retirement protection. You don't really respect us. You don't respect the NGOs. You are giving us a short shrift, and definitely we will pursue our points, and we would hold fast to our position. I think the universal retirement protection is to be put in place, and there ought to be a clear yardstick for the poverty line.
Bang from the Labour Department, Labour Party. Thank you. Regarding how we should calculate the income when we set the poverty line, the Labour Party insists that we should only calculate the net income, net cash disposable income. The formula should be such that through the income, our income from the market plus the cash, welfare income minus tax minus social security contribution. The benefit of this approach is objective and scientific and is quantifiable. It's better than the Lion Rock's Institute proposal, and it would also be better than what the FS said, that you would belong to the middle class if you watch French movies. It's more objective. Mr. Jiang at the beginning said that in setting the poverty line, he wants to achieve one objective, which is to help government formulate policies. Given this objective, we believe that at the time when you set the poverty line, you do not need to be preoccupied with a single poverty line. Our proposal is that the poverty line should be set at 60% of the medium monthly income of domestic households, and then you can set two other poverty lines at 40 and 50%. These different levels reflect the poverty issues faced by different groups. For example, senior citizens and retirees. If you set it to 50%, it's not very meaningful, because I think it's more accurate to set it at 40%. If the government really want to come up with policies to respond to the actual situation, it can consider setting up another poverty line. Thirdly, the Labour Party strongly suggests that when you set the poverty line, you should deduct the expenses on housing. First of all, let's talk about those who lease private premises, or I emphasize that when you calculate household income, you should use disposable income as the basis. The situation in Hong Kong is that people pay very expensive rents and property is very expensive. If you include that in your calculation, you will not be able to reflect the disposable income which the household can spend. We object to including the market value of public housing as the rent component. There are two major problems with that. First of all, there would be people who are collecting old age living allowance and so to say, will become affluent households. If they live in, public housing units in the urban areas, if you have two senior persons collecting old age living allowance and the market value of the rent is $6,000, they will become an affluent household. Just one more point. If the actual rental level goes up at a higher rate than the market level, that it would affect the calculation of the poverty line. Mr. Kong from the Federation of Hong Kong and Kowloon Labour Unions. Chairman, I think tackling poverty is one of the major focus of the government's policies. But figures show that the poverty problem has not improved in recent years. We have more than 1.1 million people who are poor, but the government has never have any policies defining the targets. And as a result, all these policy alleviation measures have always become controversial, like the transportation subsidy scheme. Now the government is finally willing to set the the poverty line, and we are all in favor of that. But time is precious. We hope that the government will set the poverty line as soon as possible. The earlier the better, so that we can help the rank and file people. We believe that we need to set up several poverty lines to cover different groups of poor people. First of all, we recommend that we should use the set the first poverty line at 50% of medium monthly income of household income, and then another at above 50% as a line to prevent poverty, to prevent people from falling, below the poverty line, and help them, and also we should, so that the government can help them to move to promote upward social mobility. We also believe that the poverty line should not just be calculated on the basis of income. We should consider other factors, for example, employment, education, health, housing, and family, so that the policy will be more comprehensive. For example, one social class status depends on education. We propose that the opportunity to receive education and attribution standard will also be incorporated as one of the parameters. And also we should consider medical services so that to ensure that those who are poor will not be able to, will not be deprived. We also propose that we should set up a poverty line set at a subsistence level, so that the government can provide subsidies to help these people, and we can also it could also provide reference value for CSSA policies. Other than the poverty line, we also believe that the government need to implement other policies. For example, setting the standard working age at 1.5 the normal wage for overtime work, so that the workers can get a reasonable return for the labor. Minimum wage should be reviewed once every year, and that it should be done in tandem with the poverty line to protect the rank and file. We believe that alleviation poverty is only the means. The ultimate objective should be to eliminate poverty. Mr. Wong, I work at the betting center. I work the night shift at the Jockey Club. I'm very happy to see the secretary present this morning. Last time, on a different occasion, I also met with the secretary. When I went to the Labor Department's office, well, you actually printed this name card for us. The job that we do is very simple. We all know that the Jockey Club has been voted the organization with the best corporate social responsibility. It has more than 20,000 people, and it hires about 10% of all the part-time workers in Hong Kong. So most of the employees are part-time. I also work part-time for the Jockey Club. I've been working for the club for 10 years. I'm on contract with the club. I'm not entitled to medical benefits. And next month, the statutory minimum wage will be increased by $2, and I will fall. And since I don't earn $10,000, I will be categorized as poor. Recently, my colleagues have also. The club has also launched a program for senior staff to retire. Instead of working for 180 hours, we are asked to work 108 hours. But we're not given meal allowance. The supervisor of the telephone betting officers, he was asked to change to work as a contract staff. He earned a lot of money while his subordinates are really suffering. Look at the award won by the Jockey Club last year. I think they won the award, but the price paid for was that 2 people died. In 2009, one staff jumped from height at the Jockey Club while the club celebrated its anniversary. When staff go to work, do they really have to work that hard? What happened to me is that I've been already seeing the occupational therapist for 4 years. Labor Department asked me to apply for legal aid. Last year, I think I had this cut from the Northern Hospital. There's something wrong with my neck, my back. I don't see how the Labor Department can help me. The income that I earn, I'm waiting for MRI, and have to wait until next year August, and I have to usually go to the Jockey Club to beg for a job. Today they will be staging the Queen's Cup. The prize money is $14 million. Where's the money come from? It's 1/3 of the proceeds will go to charity. The rest will be used to pay for the prize money. I hope that while the Jockey Club is doing charity, they should also take better care of its staff. Don't treat them like beggars. Mr. Wong Kwai Young. Thank you. Tongganse is an association representing the new female new arrivals. I'd like to share with you some of the experiences of the new arrivals to Hong Kong, the women arrivals. Many of these women working in Hong Kong. They are women. So many of them, are single parents, and they are not able to benefit many of the welfare measures in Hong Kong. The first thing I'd like to say is about the poverty line. I don't know whether the officials know this. We've said many times that when we talk about people who are applying for CSSA, senior citizens, and one-person family, I think what they get is already more than 50% of medium monthly income of households. But if you still insist on using 50% as the benchmark to set the poverty line, I understand that there are no objective standard as how we can set the poverty line. But if it's totally out of reality, why should you set the poverty line in the first place? And furthermore, setting the poverty line may not really help those in need. The people at the grassroots level now find that the cost of living is going up all the time. Since 2004, new arrivals can only apply for CSA after they've been residing here for 7 years, and therefore over these 7 years they are forced to really, put up with expensive rents and really can't make ends meet. But the government, like childcare service, that may not sound relevant. But there is a severe shortage of service. There are some such service offered by the government and other organizations, but you don't even get the service even if you apply 1 month in advance, and you also need to pay for the service. That's another expenditure item. And many of the necessities these families have to buy if their kids are attending school, and the kids also are compelled to attend interest groups or and the government is not subsidizing them for such activities. So that would be, another item of expenditure. So these new women arrivals are facing with such difficulties. So they are forced. Well, they also have to go through retraining, not to mention the fact that the threshold is very high, there's very limited choice, and also they can't attend full-time courses because they have to look after the family. For the so-called half-day courses, they are oversubscribed, and even they are fortunate, to attend this morning retraining sessions, they have to pay a very high, expensive fee. So after you've set up off the line, you have not taken into consideration the expenses which need to be incurred by these poor families. So the poverty line will not really affect the government policy. We think that we should restrict the 7-year residence requirement, improve childcare service, provide more assistance to children, improve the retraining, employment training courses, and also universal retirement protection should all be implemented in order that we can have an improvement. Mr. Chiu from the Universal Retirement Protection Concern Group. Thank you. I'm Chiu Sipun. I have, for the last 10 years, joined the Alliance for the Monitoring, Universal Retirement Protection and Subvented Homes for the Elderly. At the Alliance, I saw that every year what the government is implementing such measures and policies which create a lot of pressure on the so-called centers and homes. Over the last 10 years, I believe, that we should go for universal retirement protection. Why is it the government is not willing to do that for so long? The community groups have actually done the calculations for you. Actually, the government can save a lot of administrative costs when all the measures are being launched these are very good measures. Why doesn't the government do that? I mean, tackling poverty, I think we've been talking about it for a long time. But there's some things you don't know yet. This year, you're going to launch a medical voucher. It's going to be a pilot for 4 years. I'm more than 80 years old. How many 10 years do I have to enjoy these benefits? You need to be pragmatic. Don't just talk about it. Over the last 10 years, the few CEs that we've had really have disappointed me a lot. Why do we not go for a tripartite contribution to a retirement scheme? I started working in Hong Kong in 1946. I've been in Hong Kong for, after 67 years. And over the last 13 years, I've worked as volunteers. I worked until the year 2000. But after that, I still work as a volunteer, and for 13 years, I've not stopped. I'm 87 now. I worked for 67 years. We hope that Hong Kong, which is such an affluent society, with so much talents, they've all done the sum. So why don't you implement that? Mr. Secretary, you should help the CE and do, I think, please be practical and don't just, talk about things. At the Joint Alliance, I talked to him. He said, I'm going to be a citizen very soon. I said, well, you are an affluent citizen. You're different from those of us from the rank and file. So it's not a question whether or not I will benefit from this, but I hope that we can do something that will benefit the next generation. I've worked as a volunteer for 13 years. I didn't do it for myself. I'm doing it, out of a sense of, public service. So I hope that if I can see these measures implemented, fine. If not, it doesn't matter, so long as the next generation will benefit. All people of Hong Kong, all those who are in need, if they can, I think we need to, you should have practical policies and measures to implement universal retirement protection. Ms. Ho. I'd like to comment about the policy to tackle poverty. Number one, 6% of the median monthly income of households, plus housing allowance subsidies and medical subsidies and education subsidies, and also universal retirement protection. Just these 5 points. There's one more point. Is I've come here because I want to meet with Mr. Cheung on the CLP. Who is playing the leading role? Shouldn't it be the stakeholders? I've met with Mr. Cheung twice already. This is the third time. When will stakeholders be able to join the CLP? I think we've talked many times today. We asked many times already whether or not the stakeholders have the right to participate in the deliberations of CLP. Do they have the right to make decisions? We only have the right to speak. We only have the right to speak. We don't have any other powers. I want Mr. Matthew Cheung to promise that on the CLP there should be representatives of the stakeholders, so that, I think while we're making a submission, Mr. Cheung will also, stick to his policies. So there's no intersection at all. So only when there is such intersection should we know what is the real situation about poverty. So I think if we don't have a say, however vocal we are, if the CLP doesn't listen to us, then it is not going to work. It would be best that we should have our representatives sitting on the CLP so that we can deliberate on these issues together. So this is the third time that I am meeting with Mr. Cheung, and I say this to you. Every time I see you, I make the same point again. This is the third time I'm asking you, when is it that the stakeholders like ourselves will be able to, participate in the work of the COP so that we can discuss this issue together? We should have the right to participate and the right to make decisions so that we don't have to be, we will be making the same point for many years. The gentleman said I've worked for as a volunteer for more than 10 years. I've done that for more than 20 years. But I don't know whether or not all our, you heard our aspirations, which we have expressed more than 20 years. So I think, so since that doesn't work, we should really be allowed to join the COP. Next, we have Ms. Lee from the CSSA Concern Group. Thank you. I'd like to tell the Secretary an incident I came across recently to help the Secretary know about the problem facing many of the rank and file people. In the community, I met with a gentleman who is in his 30s. He said that he doesn't want to be labeled as a lazy person or a relying person and apply for Social Security. So while he was not well educated, he still believed in what the government is saying, that the government tried to encourage people to be self-reliant. He has applied for licenses to work as a construction worker, but now he's not able to make a living because he can't find a part-time job. He can't get a full-time job. He can't even afford to pay for his transportation. Instead, he had to walk from Tin Mun to Camden just in the hope of finding a job. Because he was poor, he had actually been camping on the government site for a year. Now that he has been able to make some money, he is now living in a subdivided flat, but he's been forced to evict because of expensive rent. He had once considered applying for public housing, but nobody had helped him do that, and he still doesn't have a proper accommodation. He told me that as a man, he regarded himself as a failure. He looked back, over the last 10 decades, he said that he had been a total failure and he would have committed suicide if he didn't have a family. We have more than 1 million people who are poor, but this gentleman is only the representative of the iceberg. So does it mean that one receive welfare subsidy? Does it mean that one will be subsidized? So I think even one such case would be far too many. When the government set the poverty line, you should not only rely on these jargons and tell the public what will be counted and what will not be counted. And I don't think that is the crucial point. I hope the government when it sets the poverty line, should really place human value at the core, so that people will be able to live in a dignified manner. I brought up, some salt here today. So I'd like to ask the Secretary, when will you return dignity to each and every one of the rank and file population? And also, I'd like to mention Social Security review. I think the current system is simply outdated and ridiculous. There is only a single safety net, and the safety net is full of holes already. Since 1996, when we had a comprehensive review, we're now in 2013. Mr. Secretary, 2 decades have already elapsed. So the basic needs at that time are totally different from the situation now. I'd like to suggest that the Secretary and the administration should conduct another review on basic subsistence need, and improve on the weighting mechanism to work out the CPI, so that the poor people, that those who are CSA can find will be able to really move forward. And I think we should also offer a subsidy for meal allowance, and subsidy for students to take part in extracurricular activities, and that you should help also scrap the requirement for children to declare that they will not support the parents before they can apply for CSSA.
I see 4 main issues here to summarize. First, poverty prevention, alleviation, and supports. Another point is using mobile income. Another point is the definition of poverty line. The fourth is the transparency of the operation and why it does not have grassroots representatives. And another point is the suggestions on poverty alleviation. Thank you for all the opinion of different groups, and I really appreciate it. I want to respond to the questions. A lot of people are concerned about the universal retirement protection. And I have a few points to make. For the current administration is in force for almost 10 months already. And we really have the hearts to move forward to combat poverty. And please do not question our commitment. And setting the poverty line is not just a PR exercise, it is a real commitment. There are a lot of expectations and we have to manage them carefully. And having the COP is a sign of the commitment of the current administration. And whether we can fulfill all your needs is another question, but one thing we are sure that we will only move forward and we will not go back. After setting the poverty line, we will have a means to gauge the line. And the important thing is to move forward. We cannot stand still. And the second point is for the retirement protection scheme, we are moving forward. In the past, for the 3 pillars, we used to believe the 3 pillars and nothing else. And now we are looking, we are really reviewing the 3 pillars, and we value and treasure opinion from the public. And we invited a local scholar, and who is at the forefront of his studies, and the Professor Chow did an analysis, and listening to public opinion from different parties, how we can implement them, whether they are viable. So we are actually moving forward, but we need some time and space. By the end of the year, Professor promised to submit the report to LegCo, and we will follow up on this very carefully. This is a very comprehensive study. And the government in the past did not have a detailed analysis, but in the future, Professor Chow will provide a very detailed, impartial analysis reports. And this will provide a very good basis on where we should go. And we can reach a consensus with the public on what we do. So please give us some space and confidence. Secondly, on the COP, some members say that the COP is not representative enough, and this I do not agree, because we have a very wide base, and we listen to legislators who are voted by the public and representing the public. At the same time, we have 6 task forces, and we also have members from different walks of the society. And a lot of times we will also step into the districts and listen to different opinion. And we have met friends from the HKCSS. We have communication channels. And thirdly, a lot of times our discussions at the COP cannot always disclose all the information, which some of them sometimes are confidential, which sometimes the discussions are premature. But we do disclose some of the documents online, and if we disclose confidential documents, it will only confuse the public. So we would handle these very carefully, but we do involve the public a lot, and to make sure our policies are in place. So let me first respond to the more specific questions first. Regarding the elderly living allowance on the yellow form, we are not making life hard for the elderly people. When you apply for the old age allowance, there must be a testimony, and we believe the applicants, if they are lying, they should not apply for the assistance themselves. This is a problem of integrity. And one point I have to make is that if the elderly friends cannot find somebody to testify for them, we have listed very clearly on the FAQ session on our website that in such scenarios you do not need to fill in that field. We can our staff will help you. Will help those elderly people to complete the procedures, and we are not making life difficult for them. And we have this requirement for the current old age allowance already. So if you have difficulty finding people to testify for you, we will help you. And on the question why we choose 50% as a bar for the household income, and for years, organizations like HKES, CSS, and Oxfam, this is the standard for them for a long time already, the 50% mark. And for OECD, 50% is also the standard used by OECD. But we do not have to worry, because we have measures in place to help these impoverished people. The income median is set as 60 to 100%. So does it mean that people who live above the 50% mark do not have anything? The answer is no, because we do not know how much assets they have. That's why we have other programs in place like transportation subsidy, book subsidy. So do not think that. So people who are living above the 50% mark are not supported. So please make it clear that the definition of this of the impoverished is not the same as the support level. For some families, they are still supported, and the point is we want to help more people. The point is not to exclude people. And the point of the poverty line is to set a basis. For example, take housing as an allowance, as an example. Public housing can act as a gauge. I hope the government can have new measures in place as soon as possible. But we are not waiting for the poverty line. We are already working on a number of things. So we're walking on both legs already, and we have subsidies in place. 1 year after the old age allowance is in place, we will review the effectiveness, and these are some things we will do. We will look at Hong Kong's economic development and situation. Time doesn't allow me to go further. So after the Secretary's speech, this session is completed, and we have a 5-minute break. And after the break, we would have more than 30 bodies voicing their opinion. As the Secretary had said, if you cannot find somebody to testify for you, you do not have to fill in this field. I will talk to Chairman Chen. Secretary, can you repeat again? I repeat, if you have difficulties finding people to testify for you, for example, in applying for the old age allowance, this is not a new measure. This has been in place for a long time. I used to fill in a green form. I used to receive OALA. The important thing is for those under 70, they should use the green form. Green forms, people who fill in green forms do not have to fill, are not eligible for MPF. Those using the yellow form would have MPF. So please make it sure. So please go and read it more carefully. Let's have a 5-minute break. We'll come back at 11:03.